FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
Senator Thom Tillis from the great state of North Carolina, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, we know that some form of agriculture exists in all 50 states. Well, what can you tell us about agriculture specifically in North Carolina?
Well, one thing I can tell you is we're the 9th largest producer of agriculture product of any state in the nation. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the Agriculture Committee. We're number one in sweet potato production. We obviously have a lot of other crops, whether it be tobacco, soybeans, you name it, we grow it. You go out west, it's not only just in the east. We grow product throughout the state. I was at a strawberry farm just in the Piedmont just this past week, and I've been out to the apple orchards, and we've got a wonderful story to tell about not only the $80 billion business that it represents today in North Carolina, but tremendous opportunities for growth. And I didn't even mention pigs and turkeys and layers and all the other livestock crops that we have in the state as well.
Now, before running for U.S. Senate, you were the Speaker of the House in the North Carolina legislature. So what has the adjustment been like going from the leader of a state legislature to being a freshman in the U.S. Senate?
Well, you know, they move very differently up here. The rules are very different. As Speaker of the House, we worked a lot on streamlining. We got a lot of things done. We got a lot of things done for the agriculture industry, for regulatory reform, certain issues with the DMV, a number of things that were causing problems out in our agriculture communities. Up here, the committee process, the capacity of the Senate's very different, takes a lot more time to get things done. And we're also in an environment where we have an administration and a lot of bureaucracies that are really running on their own, passing regulations like the waters of the U.S. and a number of other things that are potentially devastating to agriculture. And I'm up here trying to work in the committee. We had a committee where the waters of the U.S. Environmental rules came up today in a confirmation discussion, trying to find ways where we can get on bills, move forward with amendments that take some of the regulatory pressure off of our farmers.
So now that you've got a few months behind you in the Senate, what are some things, agriculturally speaking, that you think can be accomplished during your term as a senator?
Well, again, I think a lot of what we'll be able to focus on, whether or not we can provide much in the way of tax relief is unlikely, because we have a president whose idea of tax relief is a tax increase. I don't consider that relief. I consider that more pressure to an industry that's already under intense tax and regulatory pressure. So the thrust of my focus is going to be on looking at regulations, whether or not they make sense, whether or not they add value, or just they add cost and complexity. Something else that we're looking at is with the potential threat of avian flu after the summer and the migratory birds start moving back to the south, what steps can we take to minimize the potential impact should we experience an occurrence of avian flu in North Carolina, make sure that the Department of Agriculture in the state, the federal agencies are ready to respond if we need to respond, and try to minimize the economic impact that an outbreak could have on us.
And what about outside of agriculture? What are some things that you'd like to accomplish in your other committee work?
Well, you know, I think we need to continue. I was just on the floor speaking about the H-2B visa program. We've got a serious problem in North Carolina right now with some of our seafood packing industry. We simply do not have workers able to come and fill jobs. We've got packing companies that have created these jobs and they're going open. It's the worst of all worlds. Jobs that can be filled where people can make money and contribute to the economy, and businesses that can't grow or even stay open unless they have these workers. So I've just offered an amendment, or I filed an amendment to try and get the Department of Homeland Security to understand they're dragging their feet and they're not answering our questions, and we're going to put pressure on them so that we let everybody know, whether regardless of the industry, this one just happens to impact the seafood industry, that we're doing everything we can to get the regulators out of the way and let them get to work and to creating jobs.
Now, in your upbringing, you moved around quite a bit, and you weren't really in a specific place for too long until your high school years. So, how did that moving around, kind of during the formative time of your life, how did that impact the view that you have of the agricultural industry?
Well, I tell everybody when I grew up, when I was growing up, people have asked me why I'm so interested in agriculture, because I live in Mecklenburg County. Why have I spent so much time in the legislature, and why did I really want to be on agriculture committee up here? And it's because I've been in rural areas. I grew up in a rural area right next to a dairy farm. And I just have a tremendous respect for the farmer, because they do. If you take a look at a farmer, we always hold up as heroes these high-tech businesses and others, and I'm so thankful that we have the innovation that we do in other sectors. But there is no more sophisticated, courageous business person than a farmer. They deal with more regulations, and they deal with more variables when it comes to the weather. It's either too wet or too dry, too hot or too cold. So they have all the burdens that government puts on them with regulations, and all the challenges that Mother Nature throws at them, and still they continue to do it. I mean, and their work ethic and their commitment to the community, their patriotism is right up there. So I feel like I owe them the responsibility to come here and try to do everything I can to help them be successful.
Now, shifting gears here a little bit and talking about you personally, 2014, when you ran for U.S. Senate and obviously were elected, that was really the first campaign that you had for some time, because a lot of the times that you ran for legislature, you were unopposed. So what was the process like going through, being, such a long tenured legislature? What was the process like going through really one of your first campaigns? Well,
it was the only serious race that I had was when I challenged a Republican incumbent for the House seat back in 2006. However, I did run the campaign committee and the finance committee in 2010, which is the year we got to a majority. So I had that experience going across the state, building support for candidates and making sure that we secured a majority. So it wasn't really just a flat-footed start. But the Senate race is a very different race. Our race was not only hotly contested, it was the most expensive race in Senate history, with $118 million now estimated being spent by both sides. So I think that one of the reasons that we won is it wasn't the first time I've been across the state. I've spent a lot of time going as Speaker of the House, doing town hall meetings, meeting with people in the agriculture community, the medical community, biotech, pharma, all the industries that are the job creators in the state. So I had a number of relationships out there, and I think the foundation for running. But these races are tough. When you have $80 million spent against you, trying to define you as somebody who other than who you really are, you've got to be very disciplined and focus on the main goal. And the main goal was to win the election, which we did, and add it to the numbers that we now have as a Republican majority in the U.S. Senate.
And just to wrap up here, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it was that really motivated you to run for Senate?
I was convinced. First, I believe that the president has taken the country in the wrong direction, and I think that the Senate over the past several years has ceased to function. You're going to come into a deliberative body like this and have disagreements. The disagreement I had with the former majority leader is he simply did not allow any meaningful legislation to get to the floor and be debated and let people take votes. And so when we started looking at the national races, the opportunities for us to change the leadership and get back to getting Congress back to work, it was very clear that North Carolina could play a pivotal role in that. Because 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was not thinking about running for the Senate. I'd term limited myself and was planning on going back to private business. I felt like if we had a serious candidate, we understood how contested it was going to be, that we had a good opportunity to win, and that's why I decided to enter the Senate race.
Senator Thom Tillis from the state of North Carolina, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.